Amanda here? No. Yes, she just ran upstairs to move down.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
He didn't come last night.
Oh, that's right.
That's
Right, that's right.
Here for a few hours. Be in by noon.
Well, after I hung up the phone with him.
Did they pick up? So they did a thing. They didn't see it. Like, you didn't.
You don't have any idea. Once they get 3 hours up there. Okay, they got the explanation.
So we're on a prescription and
We're changing some of the.
but you're feeling much better?
Yeah.
Good, yeah. You've come a long way of being able to treat us.
There's all these.
Gorgeous day, right?
I have.
Yeah, it's going on.
All the research.
Mabel took over. I told her I'd be here.
I get off the phone with him and I go walking into Rob's office and I said, "Jim's in the yard." He says he'll be out there. But I think I need to finish all this for back.
All right. Hey, welcome everyone to the Tuesday, August 13th, 2024 Planning Board meeting. Before we open the meeting, take roll, Jen?
How should we just,
Yes.
Chairman Rob Pfister?
Sure, call them up.
Chairman Rob Pfister?
Present.
Who do you call? Board member?
Yeah,
Board member
Michelle.
Masella? Board member Pinelli?
Here.
Board member Liguori is not here right now. I'm hoping she will be showing up.
Okay.
She should be. I spoke to her and she said she would be here.
Okay.
That could pose a problem.
Do we do?
Yeah.
We don't do staff.
Well, we should first introduce
Oh.
our new secretary.
We will.
Yes,
So
I got it. Okay.
we do have a new Planning Board Secretary, Miss Amanda Holt.
Hi, everybody.
Mrs. Amanda Holt. Lou, would you like to lead us in the
Yep.
pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do you want to shoot Marie a text?
Doing that right now.
And you could maybe bump
Thank you.
Sure.
that you're recused on to see if she's going to come.
Yeah, that's the last on the
Yeah, right, so I just, if it, oh, that's right.
Have you guys had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the last meeting. I second the motion.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Just a moment before we bring up, first on the agenda is going to be 64 East Main Street. 550 through Route 22.
I don't know what she's looking for this part. Rob, you got a quorum, I mean, you can start if you want to, or we can move, but if you want to at least skip them.
Sure. 64 East Main, 535 Route 22.
Shall I turn this for the audience to see?
Sure.
Good evening, I'm John Watson from Insight Engineering, Surveying, Landscape Architecture. I'm here representing Mizentop Day School and Golden Rose Holdings for a lot line adjustment between their two properties. So the properties are located on both New York State Route 22 and East Main Street. Mizentop Day School has got the northern part of this map, which is here. This is the main building. And then Golden Rose Holdings is the old Rose Kiernan building. It's got frontage on 22 over here. The purpose of this lot line adjustment is that all of the properties shown on this map were, used to be owned by Guideposts, you know, the Norman Vincent Peale Foundation. And then they decided that they were no longer interested in holding property, so they started selling off their properties around the state and the region. This is one of their holdings. They sold it to both Mizentop, got the majority of the property, and then there's another parcel here. There's actually about a dozen historical deed parcels that have, over the years, been grouped together. And oh, sorry. So what we've done is we've shown all the individual deed parcels on the map, and what we're looking to do here is transfer this sliver of property that's crosshatched from Golden Rose Holdings to Mizentop. The reason for this is many years ago there was a soccer field up in the southern part of the property, and the soccer field was expanded or improved many years ago, and a retaining wall was built to expand the field out. At the time, the property was all under common ownership, so it wasn't an issue. When the properties were sold off, it was inadvertently not realized that part of the soccer fields that Mizentop uses is actually on the deed parcel that the Golden Rose Holding parcel is on. So the purpose of this lot line adjustment is simply to move a lot line from here to here, so that all of the field and retaining wall that Mizentop currently uses is on the rest of the Mizentop property. So there's no development proposed with the project. It's just simply a lot line, moving a lot line so that the fields can stay on the Mizentop properties.
Thank you.
Do you want the green cards for the beginning?
Do you guys have any questions for the applicant?
No, it's pretty clear cut to me. I don't have any questions at all. Pete?
Well, the only thing is that Karen questioned about the catch basin. Solve that problem with the catch basin?
Yep.
Yeah, so the applicants provided a response, and we'll concur whether we agree or not, you know, we'll look into it.
All right. Ray, do you have any, I don't have anything to add. I mean,
Okay.
It seems pretty straightforward. You guys, it makes a lot of sense.
Yep, the
there.
class, just cleaning up with something that should have been cleaned up
Yeah.
years ago, yes. Does the public have any questions?
Yeah, you have to make a motion on the public hearing.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Can I get a motion to open?
I make a motion that we open the public hearing.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, does anyone have any questions about this application for this lot line adjustment? Comments?
I think it's great. I think we should approve it.
I make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
I don't. What would be next on this? What's the pleasure of the board as far as action?
I think that we're waiting for the chair to review the village files. I think we're in good shape. The county review came back as a local matter. And the board should be in a good place at the next meeting to
Good.
Yeah,
make a decision.
I don't see any obstacles, at this point, so.
So I'll prepare a draft resolution of approval for the next meeting on this.
Okay, great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, next on the agenda, Trinity Pawling.
Good evening. I'm Glenn Curry. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Trinity Pawling School. We're here for a public hearing this evening to address our baseball field. The school currently has a baseball field located on the west side of Route 22, and we are looking to put a turf baseball field in. Unfortunately, today, the climate and the drainage in that area and our inability to use pesticides to control growth has caused us to pursue a path for a turf field at this site, and it's something we're looking to start construction with immediately upon approval. We'd like to have this operating and accessible to students by next spring. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mabel from Clark Companies, who can give some more background on the project.
Thank you, Glenn. So Clark Companies has been a design and builder of athletic playing fields for
40 years.
40 plus years. We specialize focusing on the athletic playing fields for this main purpose, being that the natural grass surfaces, they become a hindrance in terms of play because Mother Nature has her hissy fits, and natural grass can't keep up with the students needing to be able to play on them. Whereas when we put in a synthetic turf field, we're able to allow the schools opportunities to play on these surfaces, have recess on these surfaces, do intermittent sports, all the things without having to worry about, is this field then gonna still be able to be safe and playable for this Saturday's game or anything like that. It turns the field footprint into a full-time roundabout usable surface for them. What we're focusing on with the baseball field for this fall and a soccer field for the year of 2025.
Excuse me, I thought you were focusing on the football field.
It's a soccer field with the opportunity to also play football on
I
it.
know, but you said, so what are we working on first, the baseball or the football?
Baseball and then soccer will come in 2025. So the baseball field will be located in its current footprint, with the future opportunities for actually putting in bleachers on a particular formed slab. There will be dugouts for game shade dugouts or other surfaces for students to be in covered territories. The field vertically drains, meaning all the stormwater that lands on the field drains vertically through the carpet system into its own bathtub stormwater management design, where we can then outlet it and control it in a manner that matches what it was doing in existing conditions. So there's no change to stormwater management on the site. Erosion and sediment control and site access is all also self-contained. The project will be built and constructed in weather dependent, less than 3 months. Once the snow falls, then we'll be buttoning things up and wrapped up and moved on. Do you guys have any questions? We addressed a lot of questions on the previous meeting.
Yes, you did.
Yes.
And you answered them all to my satisfaction. It's certainly a good project. It's going to allow all the games to be played and not be canceled due to the weather. It's going to be I don't want to say a legal size field, but it's going to enable a regulation size
Yes,
field.
yes.
So you're not going to lose out on any tournaments, potential tournaments or invitations.
Correct. And my also understanding is that this baseball field also exceeds some of the regulation sizes, so that when they do have, who was the home run hitter that you guys had previously? You happen to have another Mo Vaughn come through your rankings, you have an outfield that's going to give him a little bit of a challenge.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Can I just get your last name for the record?
Mabel Gutliff.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions.
Did you just go over any recent correspondence that you received from agencies, DEC?
We received a letter from the DEC outlining that we are, yes, within a mile of a known bog turtle habitat, but because we're beyond, I think it was 300 feet or so, that puts us into a zone that's so far away that our construction would not be encroaching on bog turtle habitat. But they do ask that we maintain the existing stormwater conditions so that we're not increasing or decreasing the flow, and that we're not potentially drying up the bog turtle habitats, which we're not doing for the engineering review that was completed prior to July 30th.
It should make things a lot easier. Do we
Any
have
other questions?
have a motion to create lead agency or?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah?
Do we need to be, make a motion to be the lead agency?
Yeah.
Well, I make a motion that would be the lead agency.
Okay. Yep, is that right? Yeah.
Before they open the public hearing.
Right.
That makes sense.
Okay. Pete, you made that motion?
I made the motion.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now you want a motion to open the public
Public
hearing.
hearing.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, like to open public comment. Did you
How you
say-
doing? My name's Dave Kelly. I'm the president of the Pawling Cemetery Association, the property to the south. We have no objection to this project at all. As a sidebar note, I'm also I'm a construction manager for Iona University down in Bronxville. We currently have an application in front of the village of Bronxville for the same type of turf baseball field. Northeast is challenging, as they had said. We look at our Division I baseball team, who's not able to play due to the conditions of the field, but also the drainage issues. The drainage issues with these fields now, the way it's incorporated, improves the stormwater management system here. So it's much better for the area as well. So, again, as for the cemetery, we have no objections to this project at all, and welcome it, well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah. I make a motion that we close the public hearing. If there's no other comments?
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I want to go over the county planning letter.
For them, so we got.
So we got a
matter
county
of local-
planning review, and it was decided to be a matter of
Local concern.
local concern only.
That's good.
I want to make a secret determination.
Yeah, I'd like to I'll make the motion that we declare, this a negative
May
declaration.
I just interject here? If the board feels that it is headed toward an consideration of approval here, the draft resolution that I prepared has a secret determination in it. And that is, in its, be it resolved, the planning board finds there to be no potential significant adverse impacts and hereby adopts a negative declaration under seeker. So if that's the board's feeling, it would be incorporated in this resolution of approval. So it would be a separate motion, unless you're not inclined to approve tonight, and then you should make that final.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. I mean, we met the criteria, we haven't heard back any opposition from any of the.
It's the best thing for the program, and all the schools are doing it, no matter where you go. Even the towns are doing it on their rec fields, because they're getting tore up too much. And water is a problem, and this will solve a lot of damage. And it'll stop the kids from getting hurt too. A lot of kids get hurt on grass fields, especially when they're wet.
Based on that, I make that, I make a motion that we declare a negative declaration based on what Joe just said in his resolution.
I think if you just make a motion to adopt the resolution.
Make a motion to adopt the resolution? Okay, oh, it's in there? Okay, I make a motion to adopt the resolution.
I second the motion.
I'm sorry?
That's what you want to do.
That's what I wanted to do, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Oh. I'm in favor.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
On behalf of the school, I'd like to extend my thanks to the board. Thank you. Thanks for your time and your work on this. Here's the book.
Well, thank you for doing due diligence and providing all the information to the board to be able to.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your help.
What's up next?
Oh, no.
Right along.
All right, next on the agenda, 146 East Main Street, 140.
Good evening, everyone. Kurt Johnson, J Group Designs.
Hey, Kurt.
So, we are here basically for, it's two lots that we're talking about, 146 East Main Street, which is the restaurant and it's nearing completion right now, and 140 East Main Street, which is the existing two-family residence just to the north of that property adjacent. They're both under similar ownerships, Serafino Realty for 140, main corner properties for 146. So what we're proposing to do is actually subdivide 140 East Main Street, leaving the house on a lot here, and then adding the additional land from the back, which is the lawn, to the 146 East Main Street property. Both of those lots are currently in the R2 zone district, and the restaurant was granted a variance for use to remain as a commercial use on a residential property. So we are actually petitioned the village board to rezone the property once that land is added to 146 to become a commercial lot, which is a B2 zone. Leave the existing two-family house, just taking the garage off the back of the house there, but leaving the rest of the house as it is. Leave that in the residential R2 zone district. Along with that, and why we're doing this is actually to provide additional parking for the restaurant. The lot originally went here. We had 40 parking spaces which were approved previously by the planning board for the restaurant for 135 seats, which is basically what the former McGrath's restaurant was previous to that. By doing so here, what we're adding in 20 parking spaces. So there's a net gain of 20, so a total of 60 parking spaces on the site, and actually creates a better circulation pattern within the site because vehicles can circulate around here and get in and out rather than becoming bottlenecked in here. We had a heavy evergreen screen previously along the northerly property line of 146 East Main Street, so that will be pushed to the property line between 138 and 140. So it'll be a double row evergreens there tightly packed, so that will create a screen. There's an existing 6-foot tall solid wood fence along that common property line as it is there. So there'll be ample screening on that. And we're also proposing to increase the seat count of the restaurant, because we were limited to 135 with the water issue with the village, and we're proposing to increase that to 300, which is what is allowed by building code for that size of a building.
You mentioned the fence.
Yes.
That's not 140's property, correct?
It's, I believe the owners of 138 installed
They
the
own that.
fences. It's on the property line, but it is
It belongs to them.
correct.
Right, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make
So
sure.
we have a 20-foot wide
I just wanted to make sure
strip
that was clear.
to the south of that we'll put all our evergreen plantings in.
Did you go over any recent correspondence you've had from agencies?
We did get a letter from the fire chief, basically saying that he liked the layout of the lot and there was no problem for firefighting. We did get something back from Office of Historic Preservation, basically saying that they have no concern with the property and the parking area.
Something from DEP?
We got, it was a telephone conversation with the
Yeah.
DEP basically stating that we did not need to, because we're under 1 acre on this, so we don't need to have DEP approval on this.
County planning, do you have a copy of the,
Yes.
you have a copy of that?
Yes, and there's a letter that goes with it.
Did you
Yeah,
receive
the
a
one-
copy of that?
I did not, no.
Part of what county planning,
I mean, I can find it in here.
part of county planning said was a little bit of concern for the parking spaces when you first pull in, being in the impedance to the flow of traffic coming in as someone's possibly trying to back out of those spots because it's so close to the entrance.
That was those were part of the
Original.
former approval.
Right.
So that was all reviewed previously. We're not proposing to change those.
Right, but you are looking for a new approval, and the county did make the comment, so I think,
Yes.
you know, it's something that should be addressed.
'Cause I think they did review it previously.
I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
I got it.
Thank you.
Do we have an extra copy of that in somebody's packet that we can give to Chris?
That's what we're trying to find.
Oh, we don't have it, okay.
Yeah. Okay, don't worry, I'll find it. It's in my email. It's just gonna take a minute.
I found it.
You did? Nice.
So again, he talks about parking, the proposed expanded lot while accommodating the required off-street parking may be too congested, potentially causing vehicular conflicts. To address this, the board could waive spots, they suggested, up to 15%. So some of the spaces could also be land banked for future use if needed. In addition, without knowing the programming needs of the site, is it possible the amount of parking proposed may exceed the regular needs of the establishment with higher demand only on infrequent occasions, such as banquets, weddings, or other large events. While we recognize the concerns about limiting access to the golf course, have we explored that option?
Yes. I believe that they did contact someone at the town, and I think that there was some concerns with liability for that, with crossing the street and being on town land.
So with a point of highlight, the specific concerns that show, vehicles backing out of the spaces near the entrance, as noted above. Accessible parking spaces currently proposed north of the entrance drive should be moved closer to the restaurant. This change would improve access for those with mobility impairments and prevent the need for crossing the internal driveway and the use of the delivery ramp. Creating a narrowed one-lane drive with appropriate one-way pavement markings and signage on the lot's northern portion to improve vehicular traffic flow. Also reduce the site's impervious coverage.
You can't back out in a single lane.
Additional variances may need to allow for 9 by 18-foot parking spaces in the west side of the northern and southern lot. And then you mentioned something about EV chargers.
Okay.
If you were to consider adding EV chargers to the site.
It's something that can be discussed. I don't want to commit to that right now, but it's something that can be discussed.
Pedestrian access. Is wondering if the sidewalks were going to be extended.
They have been extended. So they do.
Across New York State 22 to Quaker Hill Road.
Oh, no.
Lighting, average of less than 1 foot candle, minimal hot spots, full cutoff, color temp of 2700 Kelvin,
I think that was
3000
all.
Kelvin, which we always talk about.
Mhm.
Bug ratings as close to 0 as practicable. Landscaping, they'd like you to consider non-native species. We did talk about native.
Non-native?
Oh, sorry, your site includes primarily non-native, and they'd like you to consider native species.
Right.
Obviously, your site plan is approved
Right,
as
and they
is,
have been
and then we
planted.
talked about the plantings that are being added
Right.
along the, residential side as being arborvitae, which are not native,
But we had those approved as between 146 and 140 previously. We moved what was requested by the board to the northerly
Mhm.
property line.
Right,
give
and
us-
I'm not sure that there's a native species that could,
Yeah.
provide the same sort of
I
screening.
don't think so. Those go
It's something
back.
it's something to think about.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
something to think about. Okay, so those are all advisory, and then, this is there are conditional comments, and their recommendation, for the reasons stated above, we recommend the board not grant the requested site plan approval until the following condition has been met. The designated accessible parking space currently proposed north of the internal driveway is relocated to a position closer to the restaurant entrance to improve safety and accessibility. So,
I mean, I guess we could swap out one of the spaces towards the front. I guess we could do that, I think.
yeah,
But-
I mean, I would heavily suggest trying to make that work.
I think we can swap.
And then taking into consideration, I only looked at this for the first time today, so,
Mhm.
and I'm not sure that Sarah, our engineer, has seen it,
Okay.
so, take into consideration the remaining comments.
We can respond to all those, but I think the one conditional thing
Mhm.
we could satisfy.
As far as the native species goes, one of the quotes when I was doing my research, I obtained from Native Landscapes.
Correct.
And that's what they deal in.
Yep.
So, yeah,
With the
I
green
believe
giant
that-
arborvitae.
Yes, so I think you're good to
Yeah.
go with that.
Because we actually suggested something else. I think
Yep.
in your discussions with Native Landscaping.
Yes.
Had suggested the change to these, which we have, so.
Exactly. And as far as the EV spot goes, I mean, we're looking to, for additional parking. If we put an EV spot in there, I think we're gonna waste the spot.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
And I think the
An
idea
EV
of
charger.
waiving spaces, that's really not what we're trying to achieve.
Right, exactly.
With this proposal.
And for the benefit of the public, as much as just for the board, which the board may be aware of, the difference between the two types of comments is that if they're advisory comments,
They are advisory comments. They're things to consider for both the board and the applicant. When they are recommendations, in order not to adopt them, any approval would have to be by a supermajority of the board.
Plus one.
Exactly, so that's the difference in the sort of level of review.
So I think the recommendation we can satisfy, the advisory things we can look at. I don't know if we can meet all of them, but.
You wanna open the public hearing, I think, at this point?
Yeah.
And then after you close that, you'd have your own remarks, but while the public hearing is open, you should ask Amanda or Jen to read the, public comments that were received.
Sure.
You have to make a motion.
Yeah.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have any comment from anyone that's here tonight?
Yeah, I live on Home Run Road.
Could you just state your name?
Mike Macarini, 6 Home Run Road. And when McGrath had it and McKeever had it, their cars would park down that street, making it tough to get in and out. Now, my wife is compromised. If I gotta get an ambulance down there and you're having a big deal, and the cars are all the way down there, they ain't gonna make it into my driveway. So I don't feel it's right that you're gonna have 300 customers, 25 or 30 staff, and 60 parking spots. How does that work out?
Well, there's no parking approved on Home Run. That was historically what was the old.
No, I understand that.
Right.
But where are they gonna park then? Cause
On the site.
you got 60 spots
Right.
for 300 customers and 25 to 30 staff. Right? That's 330 people.
Yep.
They're not all driving 6 in a car.
He doesn't have to answer this.
Sorry, did you address like the board? I
I'm sorry,
understand.
yeah, I jumped in there, sorry.
No, that's all right.
Well, that's what I got to say.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, thank you. Please.
Hi, my name is Robert Kokomo. Natasha and I live at 75 South Street, which is literally right across the street from the building here. And I'm just trying to echo Mike's comments that a capacity of 300, employees of 25 to 30, does not go into 60 parking spots. There's going to be people looking for parking spots. They're gonna be coming down my driveway, they're gonna be coming down his driveway. I think an approval of a capacity of 300 is a disaster. There's literally no physical space to put the cars for the patrons of the restaurant unless you're willing to open up the parking lot of the golf course, which, if there is liability, perhaps the restaurant can get an insurance policy that would cover those concerns. But I don't see physically in that specific area where there's anywhere to put that number of cars. Otherwise, why increase the capacity to the point where you're asking for a problem? I would ask that the capacity not be raised to that level.
Thank you.
Hi, Natasha Ruby Rose, and obviously I'm his partner. The plants look lovely, and the grass is green, and I'm sure it's gonna be green, not red. My concern is, I remember when McGrath was open, and I know we're not here discussing the parking of Home Run, but patrons would park there regardless. And they would actually drive into our driveway and try to park in the driveway. So one of the things that I'm thinking about is, we have to figure out a way that we can maybe have more parking spaces available, because this is just not enough. I just don't see the math making any sense at this point.
Thank you. Anybody else here? We did get a couple of write-ins for this project.
So just read the
wanna
entire
share
letter. Okay, so, dated August 9th, 2024, Chairman and members of the Village of Pawling Planning Board, my wife and I live next door to 140 East Main Street and 2 doors down from 146 East Main Street. We are unequivocally opposed to every aspect of the application by Main Corner Properties. We built our home 26 years ago on a lot between 2 residential properties and 2 doors down from a single-story roadside tavern. In 2020, when the applicant proposed construction of a much larger 2-story restaurant to replace the single-story tavern at 146 East Main Street, we did not object to the size, the area variances needed, or even the very irregular parking arrangement for shuttle buses running between the restaurant and Hudson Valley Plastics. Our only concern, recognizing that 146 and 140 East Main Street had similar ownership, was that there was no plan to expand the restaurant property onto 140 East Main Street, and that the residential property would remain undisturbed. Site plans at the time clearly showed the restaurant building, accessory structures, and parking lot all would be contained within the lot for 146 East Main Street, so we were satisfied. Unfortunately, we never imagined how the owner might still manipulate 140 East Main Street in the interest of the restaurant, even if the finished building and parking did not actually encroach on that lot. During construction of the restaurant, activity on 140 East Main Street included removal of nearly every tree on the property, including 2 large evergreens and 1 large maple tree in the backyard that previously provided a screen from the sights and sounds of Route 22, installation of a large commercial flagpole and concrete base, installation of a diesel emergency generator. This has since been removed, but note that it is back on the proposed new site plan. The loss of the trees had a dramatic detrimental impact on the character of our property. Our private backyard was now fully exposed to traffic at the intersection of Route 22 and East Main Street. To restore some semblance of privacy, we installed a fence along our property line at a cost of $8,500. Recall how the planning board approvals and zoning variances that were granted to the applicant's original proposal were based largely on the promise that the proposed restaurant would meet specific architectural features in keeping with the character of the village. We all know what happened next. In their current request for rezoning of the properties, the applicant states that the proposed change will not result in property values going down. I disagree. The value of our home will undoubtedly diminish if located next door to a parking lot instead of a residential backyard. In their current application to the planning board, the applicant addresses section 9874 of the Village of Pawling zoning regulations. I offer the following comments regarding their responses to several of those regulations. 9874.A.1, applicant states keeping the existing 2-family residence lot in the R2 residential zone helps to transition from the restaurant use to neighboring properties directly to the north. I disagree. Preserving a small piece of the residential lot does not change the fact that there will be a parking lot amongst most of the property line between the restaurant use and our home to the north. 98-74.A.3, applicant states the design of the restaurant building that is near completion was extensively reviewed by the village with deference to the existing neighborhood and features dictated by the comprehensive plan. All I can say here is fool me once more. Applicant also again comments how keeping a small piece of the residential property helps to transition from commercial use to residential properties to the north. Please refer to my comments regarding 98-74.A.1 above. 9874.A.4, it is almost comical that the applicant would reference how architectural cues were taken from existing key buildings near the site and throughout the village. The planning board is all too familiar with that story. Adding insult to injury, the applicant describes the fence that separates 140 East Main Street from our property and states that it will remain. As stated earlier, that is our fence installed at our cost to mitigate the harm done by the applicant's changes to the property. Whether it remains is not their decision. 98-74.A.5, the applicant states the function of the restaurant building itself will not change with this proposal, but I would argue that a 300-person event is very different from a 135-person event in terms of traffic, noise, overflow, etc. They also, once again, reference our fence as a mitigating factor. 98-74.A.6, once again, they reference our fence as a mitigating factor. The village has already made numerous concessions to allow the applicant to construct the building and site that they originally proposed. Enough is enough. This proposal must be rejected. Sincerely, Mike Rendich. And he's at 136 East Main Street. The next letter was received August 11th, 2024, for 134 East Main Street. It's
al-
basically the same.
It's almost identical,
Yeah.
there's just a couple of differences.
Yes. Okay.
This is new. Is this one?
This is the
Sorry. Right, so this has more in it than this one.
Yes.
I think. Right, so this is different.
Okay.
These two are different, that's what you
Okay.
should read.
Okay. So basically, it's the exact same letter as was previously, but the differences are under the 98-74A.1. Applicant states, keeping the existing two-family residence lot in the R2 residential zone helps to transition from the restaurant use to neighboring properties directly to the north. I disagree. Preserving a small piece of the residential lot does not change the fact that there will be a parking lot along most of the property line between the restaurant and use and our home 2 houses down to the north. 98-74.A.5, the applicant states the function of the restaurant building itself will not change with this proposal, but I would argue that a 300-person event is very different from a 135-person event in terms of traffic, noise, overflow, etc. And then this is from Artur, I'm gonna butcher this, Slavoszewski is what that was from. So those will both be in the minutes.
Rob, can I comment?
Yes, sir.
Glenn Carey, Pawling. My recommendation would be is that the applicant, seriously consider conversations with the town about the use of the parking lot at the golf course. I think that obviously additional parking is needed, but that parking is going to be critical, I think, to the applicant, also for the marketability of the restaurant. I can't imagine somebody's going to want to go in there if there's not sufficient parking to maximize the use of the facility. The golf course is not used essentially from November through basically April, beginning of April. And if they could come to an agreement on a rental of that property and to be used during the evening hours when the golf course is closed, I think that could go a long way. But I think it'd be silly for us not to think that there's not going to be a parking problem and find ways to address that as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
I think we could reapproach the town and just see what their response is in terms of seeing if that's a possibility or
I
not.
mean, like Kurt said, or as Mr. Carey said, that it's partial fix, right? Because if it's being used during the winter, it still creates the summertime hours until the golf course is closed. So if we still have to split, sure, that would be great to alleviate the parking at some points, but there still also has to be contingency for those times that it can't be used.
I think you want to close the public hearing if there are no other comments.
No, there are no other comments? I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
I'll second the motion.
Oh, yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
So now you want to invite the board to discuss?
Is there any way that the applicant would consider going from 300 below 300? What are they comfortable
I can have that
operating with?
conversation
So
with the owners.
we want this restaurant to
Yeah,
succeed.
of course.
There's no doubt about it. Parking is an issue. Parking on East Main Street, parking on South Street, parking on Home Run is a safety issue. It's also a legal issue that would be out of the applicant's hands. That will be up to the town to enforce on South Street and Home Run, and up to the village to enforce on East Main Street. There's gonna be a balancing act. Somebody is not gonna be happy at the end of this, because the restaurant has been approved, and the restaurant, we want it to be successful, not to repeat myself. I believe the right of restaurant, I disagree with Mr. Wrench's statement in his letter, fits into with the neighborhood right now. Originally it didn't. But right now, you really don't even notice the restaurant anymore. You can actually just drive right by it. It doesn't stick
I
out
think
like
it looks
an
like it's
eyesore.
been there for quite some time.
Yes, and when you're coming down from Quaker Hill and you stopped at the light, I mean, you can actually look and admire the building right now. So we have to find, and I'm sure we will find a way to make this work. We just have to be open-minded and work diligently to get this done. But unfortunately, I think somebody is not gonna be too pleased in the end. I do not agree with changing the whole thing to B2, because B2 opens it up to a lot of different usages. In the event, this restaurant, if the village does approve that and the restaurant goes belly up in 5 years, I would wanna see a gas station in that corner. So I think maybe if a different type of zone can be established, or maybe wording can be put in the document that that's all that can stay there forever is a restaurant. That's gonna be up to the attorney to decide, and the village, but that would be, that's a concern of mine. Flat out, B2, I'm against.
Yeah, it's either been a residence or a restaurant, right? So it's something that kind of restrictive covenant is something that perhaps the owner would consider. And it has the benefit, and this is not to foreclose the possibility of a zoning change, that's on the table, and that's a village board decision. But the possibility of designing a specialty zone that limits the uses, or this suggestion that was just made, which is potentially to just recognize that it's gonna be one of those two things, I think would give both the public and the board some comfort. So it might be something worth discussing with the client as well.
When you guys first came, you got approved, because it was existing 135 seats, right? McKeever's, that was the number that they had, or McGrath's, I should say. I do remember you guys saying once the water went online, that was not part of the approval, that it would go to 200 seats, was the capacity at that time?
There may have been a number that was discussed. I don't recall what that original number was. I know we landed at 135 because that's what the previous restaurant was, but.
I thought it was because of the restrictions, and then once you guys had the water necessary.
Right,
you got those approvals, and it would go to I wish we had the.
Right, and I think we had to come back to the board anyway to make that change to increase seating.
Right.
But what we were approved at 135 so the restaurant could open, which hasn't happened obviously, but still there's water issues with the village, so I don't know.
But now that Rob mentioned that, I do recall that.
Yeah, because that was part of the conditional approval.
I remember the 200 number coming up, 200 seats.
Because we were still concerned that that wasn't maybe possibly even enough parking, so if there was overflow parking, that's why it was put in the condition of the use variance, that you would have to
So let me,
shuttle to the.
if I can talk to the owners and kind of have that discussion about the occupancy of, and see if there's a happy medium in there somewhere between 300 and 135, and report back to the board and see if there's something we can do with that.
Yeah, because I don't think the public's willing, when it was 135 seats, it overflowed all the time. If you're having an event, how many people, let's say it's a wedding, how many people go 5 people in the car to get to an event like that? So it's, I know that's what the regulations say is 1 spot for every 5, but yeah, we just don't want to see that happen also, because that's a very good possibility that there's going to be some overflow.
Kurt, I think it might be instructive if you looked at the ITE parking generation demand calculations to see what's out there as far as studies go for restaurants of this size.
Right.
And see what that comes up for 300 people or the square footage total. On the occupancy, the 300 is occupancy.
That's based on building code and
That's what I
occupancy
thought.
for that size building.
Right.
So that's where we landed with that number.
Now, when building code occupancy numbers are called out, are there considerations in there for tables and chairs and things that take up space?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's like fixed tables, there's loose tables, there's different
Okay.
occupancies that you can apply to this.
Gotcha, okay. You know, when it comes to the rezoning, obviously there are a lot of considerations. I think as far as permitted uses that could occur on the site following, you know, the restaurant not making it. I mean, we have an 8,000 square foot building on site that's got some fairly expensive treatments on it, right? The site itself is less than an acre or so.
Currently, it's just over half an acre.
Yeah. The redevelopment potential for that, like, you're not gonna tear down a building of that caliber, right, to build a gas station. You know, there are many uses that are permitted in the B2 district that just simply would never occur on this site because of a variety of characteristics in place today. I definitely agree that there should be stipulations in any approval to ensure that the use follows the master plan and you know, those that are in keeping with the character of the community. But I do think that we should recognize that it's only going to be redeveloped, you know, under certain conditions based on the conditions of today.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, is that part of the concern for you guys? If the restaurant fails, you want to leave your options open? Because we already have an approval for a restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, I think the intention is that restaurant will not fail and it will
Yeah.
be a successful, it was built as a restaurant. So again, to Karen's point, it's like, you're not gonna tear down a multi-million-dollar building to put up, you know, some other thing. I mean.
I think just from a property ownership standpoint, to own a property where there's a use that is only permitted by a, you know, somewhat restrictive use variance. You know, over time, the restaurant may continue, but it may need to change hands. And it's hard to sell something that doesn't conform with existing zoning. I mean, it really, really hamstrings you from making improvements, from getting bank financing, all sorts of things. So, you know, I mean, there's land use law out there, you know, that I'll let Joe talk about in terms of, you know, what's favorable in terms of promoting, you know, good conditions for development and good conditions for maintaining community character. But in general, use variances are being kind of tuned out over time because they're an archaic form of governance.
All right. So where are we at really, like, right now? I mean, we're considering something that, for the B2, which hasn't been established.
Yeah, I think that I'd like to have a conversation with your team about potentially the repositioning of that rezoning petition along the lines of the kinds of things we're discussing here. Maybe even a discussion of the covenants. I think there's some homework that we've given today too, which they can do between now and the next meeting. And at the next meeting, I think, is where you would start to seriously consider a recommendation on however that rezoning petition is positioned. And of course, you might also be getting closer at that point to considering whether to approve the site plan once we hear some of the solutions to these problems. But I think you just put it over, did we close the public hearing? We did, right? So I think you just put it over to the next meeting, let them do a little homework. I'll have some conversations with them, perhaps Karen too, and report back to the board. And at the next meeting, we'll see where we stand.
Now, we do have a ZBA meeting coming up. We have applied for variances based on the current layout. Do we still proceed with that in the form that we presented, or?
I lean towards yes, but let's talk about that too. Let's see, you and I will talk about that.
That's at the end of the month.
Yeah,
so.
right.
I mean, I would think about what can be done to resolve the concerns of the neighbors. 138 and the other, you know, I don't know if that means putting up an additional fence that's not theirs, or additional landscaping, or
Yeah, I mean, we've got basically 2 rows of, it's thick evergreens. I don't think we can add much more there, but I mean, I guess we could add a fence on our property if we needed to have fence against fence. It just seems kind of a waste, but whatever. It could be a conversation point.
what is the linear feet of overlap between, I mean, you know, approximate? Like, are they touching corner to corner?
Yes,
You know?
it runs, 138 is this whole, I gotta get back piece here.
Oh, I see.
And then the fence runs about.
I'll see you next
Mhm,
week.
mhm.
I think there's gonna be another one.
Yeah.
And I do think that checking on the ITE standards for parking could yield some really interesting results, because I think in line with some of what the neighbors have said, and I think really even what you've presented as what the intention is. Yes, it's a restaurant. Yes, at its fullest capacity, you know, you might be pushing this 300, seat capacity. On the other hand, I suspect that there are some differences. Like, I don't expect that on a Wednesday night you're expecting 300 people in the restaurant. I think the idea is that this is, I'm guessing there's some kind of consideration taken for what is really kind of a banquet facility. I just wonder whether there's some room in there to advise both the board.
I think the original intent is, basically the way the interior is set up is the first floor has a dining area, the
Right.
second floor has 2 dining areas.
Right.
So I think the thought was that what McGrath's had previously was when people wanted a baby shower or a small thing, after a funeral or something, have a small group of people, have a place to go to have that. They wanted to provide that here too. You know, if one of those rooms is occupied, then there's no dining maybe in the other area. So there's that interplay that we can, I mean, I assume the first floor would always be occupied.
Yeah.
With the bar in it, so.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you could characterize how many events of that type you would have
Yeah.
a month.
Right. Yeah, I think it's kind of unknown at this point, because if you kind of.
Sure.
If there's no place around locally, I think, that can offer that, but I think if it's offered, more people would take advantage of it, but not knowing, but anyway. I mean, it's probably part of somebody's business plan for the restaurant, and how to make it work.
Right.
So I will.
See you next.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Try to get you some answers of what we spoke about tonight.
All right, great, thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Turn this over to Lou.
15 Memorial?
If I may, I just want, I know there was some back and forth today about the status of the public hearing on this, and I think we're.
Yeah, I think we left the
in
public hearing
checking the
open for 2
minutes,
weeks.
we left it, we closed it, the live public hearing at the last meeting, left it open for 2 weeks for additional written comments.
Right.
I don't believe that we got anything further, right? But, so I just, for purposes of the public and just to make clear for the board, for the record, the public hearing on this has been held and closed, and so we're here for further discussion.
Do we need a
Okay, you're
recap,
up.
or can I?
Yeah, give me a quick recap, sure.
Okay, so, as previously explained, we have, an existing, what was a single-family home, then a multiple-family home, then a single-family home. And we're looking to convert it to a 7-room, 4-suite, but 7-room hotel, which is a permitted use in the B1 district. There are proposed site improvements. We are proposing to have an accessible parking space here, and then in total 6 parking spaces. The occupancy count for the building is 13. So in the rooms, there are, one suite has 1 bedroom, so 2 occupants. The second suite, also on the first floor, has 4 occupants. On the second floor, there's a suite. The suite to the south has 3 occupants, and the suite to the north has 4, so a total of 13 occupants. I will go through the comments that we recently received. We had asked for a waiver of doing a photometric calculation of the lighting that's planned, so we're planning on putting, much like what's at the station inn, a Chapman House, which is what we're calling the property, sign with the post lighting, both on Memorial and from the village parking lot here. That lighting will be the equivalent of a 75 to 100 watt bulb, so there really isn't photometric available for that, so we did request a waiver for that. One of the other comments was stating that we were proposing to put an accessible ramp here with an accessible entry into the building here. We are showing 2 non-illuminated bollards, so that if you're backing up here, it provides safety for the ADA ramp at that entrance. So we did change that on SP 100 to make that clear. There were also comments about the size of the plants that we're proposing. So we've shown the plant material, which is very similar to what's at Station Inn now. There'll be seasonal plantings, boxwoods and arborvitae. I believe the comment is about the seasonal plantings. The arborvitae and the boxwoods are called out to be 18 inches, and those are also numbered and shown on the drawing. The seasonal planting, this is an example of what would be typical at Station Inn. We would keep something similar. So those are generally seasonal nursery-sized plants, which range anywhere from 4 to 18 inches. There was a request about engineering review approval and determination of the fire access striping and the signage, and we did submit and receive a letter from the fire chief, which you should have received. He was stating that from the village parking lot here, we took down a dead tree here and removed a shed, so he feels that there is ample access from the village parking lot here, and that signage and striping are not required. Okay, I think that's everything from that letter, and then from Sarah Drury's letter. We're still waiting for the Dutchess County Behavioral and Community Health approval. We have applied for that. Comment 4 on that
No,
letter.
Mary, we haven't applied yet.
Oh.
We got the letter from them telling us what to do, but we need to get further along before we can do that.
Oh,
so,
before we
yeah.
apply for that,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
okay. And then, the fire department comment from this letter we've addressed. There is a pending, area variance that we are currently under review with the zoning board of appeals. And once we get that approval, we would submit that. The site plan, let me just go back to that. There were questions in here about the signage in the site plan. So, we have cleared it up on the legend here. So we do have, on the ADA, parking spot here, we do have a sign that reads, it's ADA parking and it is van accessible. So that's listed here. We changed this on the legend to make it easier to understand. There is no parking in the access aisle here, and we do have a no parking sign as well, and that's everything is shown in SP 101 for that. We did update AP1 to correct the size of the parking stall and make it match SP 100. And then I think, John, we could let you talk about the asphalt surface and the drainage.
Sure, yeah, we're gonna do a calculation to show that the increased impervious surface with the new paving is not going to overload that existing trench drain there. We can provide a calculation for that.
Okay, and I think that was all of the comments that we recently received and addressed.
Karen, you have anything to address, or?
I don't have any additional
No?
comments.
We have our, the Joint Sewer Commission, we have the paperwork from them?
I'm not sure what to do with that, Lou. I mean, we have a hookup currently, so I'm not I don't understand that requirement, and we'll do whatever,
Okay.
but, you know.
I was just wondering
we
if
have to-
there's not gonna be any
we're
increased
required-
flow.
We're required by law to hook up, so I don't know,
Okay.
you know, it's you know, whatever formality we need to do, we
Yep,
certainly
no.
will, but, yeah.
I think it's just, is there an increase from current usage?
No, remember we gave you the water figures, it was less. Remember, that was way back when.
Okay.
I mean, I think we're just trying to get into
No,
the
I-
practice
no, no,
of making
yeah.
sure that the applicants are seeking capacity information relative to the project. So
Right.
maybe you just send an email to Pawling Joint Sewers stating what your water demand is, wastewater generation is, and get a letter
Right.
back.
So based on the additional information that we have to commend the Joint Sewer Commission, we already have the paperwork from the fire department.
Mhm.
And they have met everything else, I believe. Is, can we, Joe, adopt a preliminary resolution to approve this based on how the ZBA,
Yeah, conditional.
conditional
It would be
approval?
conditioned on, well, it would have several conditions. And, but the answer is yes, and one of them would be the obtaining the ZBA variance. So, yeah, I mean, you could.
Could we do that
consider
tonight, or will you feel more comfortable
You-
just waiting till next month?
You could consider it tonight. You could also authorize me to have it ready for you at the next meeting. If you consider it tonight, we should put on the record, and I can pull it up, and Karen can corroborate that I got it right, what I think we think those other conditions should be. So if the consensus of the board is you'd like to consider an approval this evening, let me know, and I will tell you what I think.
On second thought, I think, since we're waiting for some more information to come in, let's wait until next month, and you draft the.
Okay,
the
so we'll have something for you to
resolution.
consider
Next month.
Okay.
Do you need a motion on that, Joe?
No, as long that I'll just, because you're not adopting anything, it just gives me the authorization to go forward.
Is anybody from 19 Memorial here tonight? No, I guess not. Dave?
Could I just understand, I'm not quite sure why we're not, I'm just a little concerned. We're trying to get this thing done by the end of the year. It's been a year, it'll be a year at that point. And it's just tough to get, we only have 3 members, and I understand people have schedules, but we've had a couple of meetings where, so I would just ask you to consider an approval with conditions so that we can then move forward with, because we're waiting, it's just sitting there. It's a permitted use in a B1 zone. It's a change of use. It's something that I don't think anything like this has ever experienced. And it's fine, I get it, I'm not, but it seems like we've gotten everything we've, you know, and I'm just concerned we're gonna go over the same stuff again the next time, and.
Well, let me bounce this back to Joe, because I agree with you as well, Dave. I know you want to get this project going. As far as I'm concerned, you've met everything that you have to meet. I was just wondering if all the necessary paperwork that have to come in
It's all
slow us down a
ministerial.
bit, but I'll leave that up to Joe. If we can do that tonight, I'm in favor of Pete, Marie, if you're, do you concur?
Sure.
I'm waiting to see what Joe has to say.
Well, so let me tell you what I think the conditions would be, and if you're comfortable, and Karen concurs, then we'll revisit this question. If you were to approve tonight, I think the conditions would be, approval from the Dutchess County Behavioral and Community Health Department, satisfactory response and revisions to the site plan per Lobella's engineering review. Applicant will comply with the requirements of the DEC education and encounter plan. The applicant will adhere to the SWIP and erosion and control measures as shown in the plans. Is that right in this one?
I think you're confusing it with the
Yeah.
turtles.
Those last two, we
Yeah.
didn't hear about before.
Sorry, forget that.
The DEC you're striking as well?
Yeah, I'm striking that, this one's not right, and then the last one is, that approval is conditioned on approval of the variances required by the project. The last thing I think I would put on the record if a motion were made, it's acknowledged, I think we all know that there's a private dispute easement with respect to the neighbors here, the applicant and the neighbor. It should be clear that if you go forward with the resolution of approval, that resolution should not be construed as the planning board having taken a position on the easement, as it's a private dispute not within its purview. And that's state law, that's just sort of, I just want to make it clear, because it's been such a prominent issue on the record, that that's part of the planning board's consideration. So those are the conditions.
Do you want to just restate them? I got a little muddled there.
Yeah, so the first is approval from Dutchess County Behavioral and Community Health. The second is satisfactory response and revisions to site plan per Labella's engineering review. The third is approval of the variances that are sought. And then the last, it's not really a condition, but the last point is what I just mentioned about not being construed as having taken any position on the easement.
But that's not a condition, right?
It's not a condition, I just, if the motion's made tonight, I just think it's important that it be part of the resolution.
I'll make the motion that you go ahead and do what you have to do to get this settled, so we can get this done. So there's nobody else here complaining or saying anything. We've heard more than enough on this. Let's get it over and done with.
So I think that the motion, if you're inclined to entertain it, would be to adopt a resolution of site plan approval with the conditions as have been described here, and that statement about the easement. If someone wants to make that motion, you could consider.
I'll make that motion.
Did you have something, Karen?
I have one last thing. They were seeking a waiver on lighting, and so I think we should just close that loop, and if you're gonna grant that waiver on lighting, that's part of the.
Part of the resolution is to
Yes.
grant the waiver on lighting.
Yes.
Okay. So with that amendment, somebody make the motion?
I made the motion.
Well, making.
I made the motion.
Re-second.
Marie second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We approved in the very beginning.
Yeah.
At the end. You got any other business? That's what you gotta do.
What we do, I have to sign off on this one, actually, I have to do this during the meeting.
I don't know what it is. What is it?
It's a EAF. No, I've never signed an EAF, just sign off on these.
Why are you signing an EAF?
That's what
On what project?
What are you talking about?
Give it to the attorney.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
The main reason people have attorneys is so they have somebody to blame.
Okay.
What project?
This is already approved, she's just looking for a signature.
Hold on a second. I think that, so this dates back to March. This is from Pawling Commons. It looks like you never signed, though the resolution was adopted. You never signed the Part 3 form. That's a secret determination that, there are forms. There's Part 1, the applicant fills out, Part 2, and Part 3, the board's experts or consultants fill out, and then you sign it. And so you need to sign it.
Was this the only Part 3 that we've done?
No, we've done lots of Part 3s, but now you know what you're supposed to do.
I guess so. There's a stack, there's gonna be a stack of Part 3s.
So go ahead and
on, I
sign
guess.
that. Yep.
So Amanda, there's a good note for you to start off with. Yeah, no, we don't want to scare her up.
Because we circulate these, and if you look at them, there's a signature.
On there?
Yeah. There's,
For the Part 3s?
yeah, there's a signature for the chair. I sign it, and then you have to sign
That's good to know.
it. Okay.
We make a motion to adjourn.
No other business?
Yeah, do we have anything else? Yeah, all right.
Make a motion?
I made a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So there was a part for Trinity Pawling.
I'm
That was
Mark.
related.
I'm Mark.
So you should sign
Oh, no, you don't.
Lou.